In the worst of times, the best way to go ahead and get some type of action is do the thing you can and then feel good about it. Don't look at the rest of the list and talk crap to yourself and be all down in the mouth about it. Actually be involved with, okay, I did something good. Give yourself that benefit and that win.
Welcome to the Point with Jeff Spikes, the show about achieving goals, embracing growth, and finding your true path. And now, here's your host, Jeff Spikes.
Hello and welcome to The Point. I am your host, Jeff Spikes, and extremely grateful. We're digging deep into the idea of feeling blocked or stuck in life. The idea is that you gain some benefit and some use out of the ideas and thoughts and suggestions that come and the discussions that happen, behind the scenes and in the DMs and the chats. It's really, up to you to notice when you're feeling stuck or blocked or when you sense that might be coming. This all started from an idea of going to be a guest on a podcast about grief. And that was Grief, Let's Talk About It with Tony Lynch. And grief is one of the things that can provide a perfect storm for getting stuck and for feeling like we're in the mud. Grief can bring up a lot of feelings that can become unresourceful. And yet the same feelings can be very resourceful if we allow them to flow. You heard the connection made to the idea of a river or a stream or water flowing, and the idea of putting a dam in and that causing a lake, and all the things that happen when you have your purpose of this lake, the purpose of the dam, and that you regulate the water to meet that purpose. That purpose might be getting water to families' homes, to animals, to farmland. But knowing the purpose, and even as the purpose adjusts based on the needs, knowing that purpose helps make the changes and the things that need to happen at the dam so that the right flow is happening. Now, there are some uncontrollable factors to play with weather, all the things that might contribute to the amount of water that would end up in that river or in the lake if you've got the dam, plus the controllable factors of how long you keep the amount of water you allow to flow through. The amount of, if you can't let enough through and there's too much water, what happens? And the structure and integrity of the dam can be challenged. So planning for the future and understanding the largest purpose can be valuable and important. And that point was covered some last week. What started this was the idea that there are things that happen in life that can take you off guard, take you off track from what you're really trying to achieve. And you can end up stuck or blocked from what you want. Obstacles can appear that become larger than they had to if you've planned well and have a solid plan for living and achieving and being successful, which is sometimes the difference between living a super intentional life and not. Not all of the people in the world want to live a super intentional life. That's too much work. But if you're listening, you're someone that understands the concept and the benefits of being intentional, taking ownership in your actions, and owning the results you're having. Having covered the idea of understanding purpose, passion, knowing your strengths, knowing what you want out of life, and creating that vision and that emotional connection, there was some discussion for you. And if you're here because you were waiting to talk more, because it's gone deeper for you, and you're in that sense of overwhelm, or you're even down in the sense of where you're speaking very negatively to yourself and you're comparing yourself to others in any sense of the way, and coming up with any type of conclusion that resembles you not being good enough or less than other people, and you're off track and off purpose of just being the best version of you, well, then these next two episodes are designed to be your best sense of hope and your best sense of actions that you can take, clarity of understanding of what you can do in the smallest version to make a difference and move in the right direction so that you can have that sense of purpose and passion and vision. The only way to compare is to compare the results you're getting off of the results you've already had. And doing so in a way where it's only feedback, because you can gain the lessons you need to continue moving forward. And the only way to fail is to quit. The only way to fail is to completely stop and take a different direction. And sometimes a direction change isn't even quitting. It's an awareness and a realization and a understanding that a turn is necessary. What happens when the water's so high that it's overtaking the dam and there's too many things to do and you're just out there, you're out of the resources needed to get it all done? You know, I've been through times in life where that is absolutely how it felt. That is what I experienced. At some point, we can talk about the story of being when I was laid off, and there were 3 people in my family that had become very ill, and it was very overwhelming. And man, and then I was laid off from work. I separated from the company I was with, which was a complete shock. Also a complete, absolute blessing in disguise that I wasn't aware of, because it allowed me to stop and take care of the things that were most important to me. It helped create the priorities for me. But we're not going to dig into those stories today. If you're sitting there wondering if you're alone and you're in overwhelm, or you've ever experienced overwhelm and felt alone, you'll know what I'm talking about. The idea is you're never alone. The idea is that there's always someone else going through the same or more, and you can always get through what you need to get through. Having a sense of purpose or passion, or having some idea of what you want, can be very useful. Sometimes all you can do is focus on what you don't want and get away from it as fast as you can. But to sustain any sense of forward movement, the idea is to generate the understanding of what you want. I had not sustained an ability to really develop and stick with a design for what I wanted in a bigger picture. And I found myself recycling back towards being motivated by what I didn't want, which allowed me to reach new bottoms with new things, right? It allowed me to allow things to get bad before I'd change them. So I did a yo-yo with my weight, and I'd wait for it to get bad enough to then change it. And that happened a few times before I made a total change. The same thing can happen with finances, with relationships, with work, with business, with anything that you get into. What can you do if you are in overwhelm? And I'm going to give you quick 3 things and the gift of time that you're going to be able to jump onto the next thing and have listened to this entire show when life feels super muddy and all jumbled and mixed up, difficult to pick a priority, and very overwhelmed, too many things that need to happen, and no understanding of how to make that work. You know, there's an idea a trainer said to me at one point, when I first started this journey, I created the 5-year plan to get in the best shape of my life. When I created that 5-year plan, it was to overcome the yo-yo and that up and down effect that I was having every 5 years. And so I had a 5-year plan on what I was going to do to have a complete change. And now I have a 10-year plan. And, you know, it's like a key, and I have in that there are shorter plans. But the idea is I haven't had to recycle back through those extremely heavy weights. And I've still been able to manage healing and doing all the things that I wanted to do in this process and be in the best shape of my life. So when I was starting, one of the very first trainers I had asked me, what's the best exercise that you can do? Well, I don't know. That's why I'm here. So I'm paying to be here for you to tell me what's the best exercise you'll do. And the message came back really clearly that the best exercise you can do is the one that you will. Right? So sometimes if you're feeling overwhelmed, the best action you can take is the one that you will. Look at the list of things that you need to do and look at the one that you're the most willing to do in that moment. Sometimes your intuition will just drive you and get you into the best thing that you can do to move forward in that moment. Take it, do it, get it done. In the worst of times, the best way to go ahead and get some type of action is do the thing you can and then feel good about it. Don't look at the rest of the list and talk crap to yourself and be all down in the mouth about it. Actually be involved with, okay, I did something good. Give yourself that benefit and that win. Little by little, you can stack wins. So one thing you can do if you're overwhelmed is get some prioritization done, prioritize some things, and begin to get some small wins. Now that's coming at it from bottom up, from the problem up. There's still the best way to maximize this is to go with your greatest vision and understanding of what you want and build it top down as well. You want motivation from both sides of these things, both sides of an issue, knowing what you don't want and what you do want, so that if you're in the sense of overwhelm, the larger picture vision helps you really prioritize what you want, and maybe even some form of emergency planning around something you don't want could also put something higher on the priority list. But it's important to have both sides of that type of motivation. That's the science of motivation, is that you get motivated by more than one thing. And that's how you can sustain forward movement. I hear people say all the time, well, you can't help people change. You can't help people learn to motivate themselves. That's a bunch of malarkey. That's crap. You can learn to be motivated. If you're struggling with feeling motivated and able to move forward, you can learn to do that. And that starts with knowing what you don't want and being willing to gain a vision and an understanding of what you do want and finding your purpose in that. That will begin to create the motivation level. Then we can stack some wins. Then you can start working towards stacking the small wins of the things that you can do on a daily basis to keep you from the things you don't want and to move you towards the things you do want. And you can choose to mix up those things as you need to, both in daily routines and in weekly lists. And at that point, you can, if it's that many things on your list. At one point in my life, I had so many things on the list. I had 5 or 6 different major priorities going on that were very clear on items of not wanting things. Some of them were emergency management with health issues with people in my family, and other things were, more proactive of things moving toward. But either way, it was overwhelming just to try and figure out what all the lists were and all the things that needed to happen that were. In some of that, I needed to learn to give myself a break, and I had to start, and it was important to start working from a place of talking really well to myself. But that's next week's episode. And I promise the gift of time and to get this over quickly. So let's dig into these 3 things, right? The idea is, if you're feeling overwhelmed, is start something. Do the thing you will. The next thing, breathe. Literally breathe, to either bring yourself up or down. If you want to motivate yourself to stay awake and to stay engaged, inhale longer than your exhale. Take a really nice long inhale and fill your belly and your chest with air and just blow it out as fast as you can, and then do another. And if you're doing more regulated breathing, breathe in to the count of 8 and out to the count of 4. You want to breathe in more than you breathe out, and that will help oxygenate. Now, you can also do 30 deep, long breaths in and out, and that will fully shift. That'll fully shift what you're doing. If you do only 3 of them, it'll go ahead and shift your mind and get chemicals flowing in your brain differently. DM me if you want to dig into more breathing exercises, and I can get you a list of types of breathing exercises, or just Google breathing exercises on YouTube. There are tons of ways of doing breathing exercises that will help you learn to keep yourself up, move yourself up in attitude and up in motivation and not feeling tired. And there's also ways to bring yourself down if you're feeling overactivated. So 4-4-8, where you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, and out for 8, is a wonderful calming technique. Bring yourself down and re-regulate if you get overexcited or overwhelmed in a physical sense, where you're not feeling connected, your breath, your body, to the ground. And the other one is that intuitive sense of self. Trust yourself. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you need that 2-hour break, that rest. You need to watch a movie to distract your mind. You need to, whatever it is that you do to get your mind off of things for an hour, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 2 hours, a night, a weekend, whatever it is you need. Sometimes taking those breaks, trust your intuition. Taking a break can be extremely beneficial to reset. Your intuition can also tell you what the next best thing is that needs to be done. And it may not make any sense at all. And someone walking into your life might go, why are you working on that? That is the least priority of thing that you need to be working on right now. If you're doing it reactively without any thought and it's just helping you, that could be something that someone's bringing you feedback that says, man, you're just walking yourself in circles and frustration, which that's possible. But if you're working from a sense of intuition, it might be the best thing that you can do. It's probably the best thing that you can do. And if it's not, if you're working from your intuition, you can learn from that, then you're developing that sense of relationship with your intuition. But if you're feeling overwhelmed, the idea is find a way to get up into action. And if you haven't dropped down into a place of talking negatively to yourself yet, you can work on those motivation pieces and start finding some tools to use to not allow it to get any deeper. Next week, we'll talk more about what happens when we get into that other size of the block that really locks it in. This is what tightens everything down and keeps us entirely stuck, is when we begin to use the negative self-talk and the words that are defeating and negative. And this is where I have turned and fallen into depressions and found myself in a place of feeling really stuck and feeling like I needed to take such exertion that it wasn't even about overwhelm. It was more about the idea that the level of exertion I just didn't know if I had, or I had to wait for it to get a little worse so I could gain the desire and the energy to finally get up and do it. And that is a nasty game of chicken on the road, facing someone down that's looking at disaster and not acting. That can become dangerous. If you're there, stick around next week. I promise to deliver more on that and really talk earnestly about what kinds of things I did to back myself out of that level of negative self-talk, the practices that I use today that keep me from that. You've already heard about some of them as you've listened to the last episodes and listened to the idea of gaining a better understanding of what you want, because that is a key element today. But I thank you for being here. I really, more than that, I thank you for the comments and the questions and the DMs that you're sending, because that's really helping drive more conversation and keep things crisp and to the point on this topic in specifics. Because in this sense of the wording of what we're talking about, it's important not to imprint ideas in our minds and not to continue to recycle all of this information, so that what we focus on grows. We can talk about the problem, but it's important. The point is to focus on the solution and to focus on the things that can be done that will drive some form of relief if we're feeling these things. Have a community of support. Have a positive bunch of people around you that are interested in them being their best selves, so that you can be your best self. And that are people that are willing to support you in that behavior and those behaviors and those thoughts. And that is the point today. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of The Point with me, Jeff Spikes. Please visit jeffspikes.com for everything you would need to know to engage with me offline. And lastly, thank you for your time, your attention, and your consideration. This is The Point.